All right, so good evening, and thank you all for joining us for our April speaker series about rain gardening. This presentation complements our Western Waterfront Rain Gardens project, a grant for which we received from the Long Island Sound Stewardship Fund at the Long Island Community Foundation. We have with us tonight Sean Rooney, who is a conservation technician at the Nassau County Soil and Water Conservation District, which does great work. And Sean will tell us a little bit about the district before launching into rain gardens. So Sean, take it away.
Hiya. Yeah, Sean Rooney. How's it going? Thanks for the introduction. And yeah, let's get right into it. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of who we are today, and then I'm going to go talk into rain gardens, why they're so important. I'm going to teach you how to build one, recommend some plants along the way, and finish it off by showcasing some of our projects that we've done here at the district, and share some great resources if you're interested in learning further. Yeah, so who we are, because it's a bit confusing. It's important to explain because not many people do know who we are. It's something I didn't even know as someone who's interested in environmental work my whole life. Didn't even know the district existed, so it's important to talk about. We do environmental conservation work. We have some of our own projects, and we help fund other organizations. So we're made up of every county in the state has a conservation district, and they are in place to help other organizations. We help provide assistance to organizations and not-for-profits, and we give educational programs. We help communication between them, and we help projects get done, basically. And yeah, so we help fund some of our own, and basically we help people coordinate and get environmental conservation work done. So yeah, without further ado, get into the rest of the presentation. Just a quick overview of what I'm going to be covering today. What is a rain garden? The benefits of having one, how to build one, and where to build one, and what to look for. The maintenance, which is not much, thankfully. And then I'll cover some of our projects, and I'll recommend some plants and share some resources and things. So yeah, rain gardens are a bioretention system, which is a big fancy word to basically say it's a living system that is going to retain something, and in this case it's water. And they are usually made of native plants, and so they are drought and flood resistant. And that helps you with a lot of the native conditions we have, where it's not always wet, it's not always dry. And yeah, these gardens are designed to fill up with a few inches of water when it rains. So these plants have to be able to be completely dry at times and completely soaking wet, filled with inches of water at other times. And the purpose of a rain garden is it is in place to catch water and filter out pollutants. So it catches what's known as non-point pollutant sources. And a non-point pollutant is sort of like anything that comes from stormwater runoff. An example of point pollution would be like a factory that's directly dropping things off from that one point. So yeah, it basically catches any sediment, pollution, silt, things that are picked up with stormwater, and helps bring those to the plant roots. The nutrients get absorbed by the plant roots before they go into the ground, or worse than that, they keep rolling and they go somewhere and pollute somewhere else. It's mostly about retaining the pollutants and the nutrients right then and there in the garden. So they're usually located in the pathway of a impervious surface, like at the edge of a parking lot, at the end of your driveway, and they hold several inches of water. One interesting fact, as you see down here at the bottom, is they can absorb 90% of the nutrients from chemicals and stormwater runoff that is present in the water that they pick up, which is pretty insane amount if you really think about it. And to explain that, I can show you this picture here on the right-hand side of just how deep some plant roots go in comparison to a normal lawn. As you can see there on the bottom, it soaks 30% more water into the ground, and out of that 30% water, it's taking 90% of those nutrients. So it's drastically different. The actual amount of flow rate that's into the ground versus the amount of infiltration into the ground, other than what you would have from normally from grass. So it's a massive improvement. There's so many benefits from having a rain garden in an area where water is naturally pooling, or where you're just worried about flooding. So yeah, they provide food and shelter. They're a nesting resource for animals. Always planting anything is going to be a benefit to the world around them. Being that they're native plants, it's particularly amazing to plant native plants because the animals around here are adapted to eat that kind of food. So it fits right into the environment, and they can start working right away. They add color and volume to an area. You can add height to visually occlude things. You can add color to make other things stand out. They store carbon dioxide and, of course, remove air and water pollutants, as I just covered. And yeah, they have really low maintenance requirements because they're native plants. They're adapted to living here, and it's basically a win-win for everyone. But yeah, as you can see there on the right, it's just so much drastically different. So if you look at the picture here on the left-hand side, it shows you a rain garden built into a lawn. I particularly like this one because it shows you that even where you think there couldn't be one, you could just sort of make one if you look at the contours of the ground and you know where the water is going to flow and where it's going to pool. You'd be surprised. There's a lot more places than you think you could create one. So yeah, let's get quickly into how to build it. It's pretty simple. This is like a broad overview kind of slide. Just to give you like 5 quick checklist points. So you're going to put it in the pathway of runoff, be at the end of a driveway, edge of a parking lot, near a roadway, anywhere where water is naturally going to pool. And you're going to make sure that it is large enough to fill the area with water. So usually that's 20 to 30% of the size of the parking lot. If you take it measured out for area, same area on the rain garden, should be about 20-30% of that. And yeah, you're going to test your soil and make sure that it is going to be able to take a few inches of water and drain that over the course of a day. You want to take one good test for soil is to actually physically grab the soil and you clump it in your hand. And if it falls apart, if it's like sandy and if it's rocky and grainy texture, then it's good. That's what you want. And then if it doesn't fall apart, if it's kind of like Play-Doh, it's probably got a lot of clay in it, and other things that aren't going to drain as well. And there's a few different tests you can do to test your soil. One test that is very simple is you can just dig a ditch and you fill that ditch with water, small depression in the ground. And yeah, basically you fill it with water. You come back every few hours, up until the next day, over like a 12-hour period, and you basically see if it has completely drained all the water off. The reason you have to dig a ditch first is because you have to get a little lower into the layer. You're mostly interested about in the composition of the soil that is about 3 to 6 inches under the surface soil, because that's where your plant roots are going to be. That's where you want them to stretch down to into the drainage layer to assist with that infiltration of water into the ground. And yeah, lastly, you're going to fill them with hardy native plants chosen for the local conditions. Lots of different gardens have different conditions, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, that's basically the quick 5 steps on to how to do it. And it can be done anywhere. You'd be surprised. There's a lot of little depressions and scoops in the ground in nature where these kinds of things happen naturally. So yeah, this is like a more comprehensive how to select an area. So you want to look at it in a comprehensive, like holistic kind of way where you take everything into consideration that you can, the flow rate of the water, how fast it's going to be coming into that area, how much. One good thing to do is to just go outside and once every hour and take a look where the sun is, where, get a feeling for the temperatures of the area, and you can look on the ground to see where there's marks of sand and rock that have been pushed by water. Usually they leave like a smooth stream. It's like a slide trail almost. And yeah, basically just get more connected to the site itself, so you know it's in its conditions, because everywhere on Earth is going to be different based on where you are. There's a general, we're in the 7A region, but generally you going to the site and being more connected to it is going to help you in the long run. You want to place the rain garden away from buildings. It can't be over a septic system. You basically want to make sure it's in an area that it's okay for water to go into the ground there. And yeah, you want to test your soil composition. It's one of the most important things. It should be granular, well draining. It should fall apart in your hand. You want to make sure to use existing storm drains as overflow, especially if you're in an area where, say, it's like near the end of a driveway or a parking lot where, a heavily industrial area, lots of impermeable surfaces like roadways. You want to make sure that it's angled in the direction that it will go to a storm drain if there's too much water in the area. And you want to consider your groundwater recharge rate. That goes into testing your soil and knowing how fast it's going to drain. If you want the water, if it's draining too fast, you could consider planting taller plants that are going to create more shade. That's what's known as a riparian buffer. It's basically, if, say, a tree is planted at the end of the lake, the tree shades the lake waters the tree. It's a happy relationship all over. You can sort of create that on a smaller scale with some of these rain garden plants, because especially in the summer months, they can climb up to, 4 to 6 feet, some of these plants. And yeah, you can basically pick plants specifically based on your site. And yeah, just get into the maintenance of it. I'm rambling. So the maintenance, yeah, you only have to water it for the first 3 to 6 months, and that's really easy and great because they're native plants and no irrigation is needed after that. No additional fertilizer is needed. You really don't even have to fertilize much, just as a general rule, especially living here on Long Island, where we drink from our aquifers and we're very concerned about the excess nutrients going into the water surrounding us. It's really good to just minimally fertilize. And one of the best ways you can ensure that you're going to do that is to use native plants that are already adapted to our type of soil and are going to just thrive here regardless. You have to do a little bit of weeding and invasive removal. You want to make sure to be mindful of what certain invasive plants are. A brief knowledge can help a lot because you can prevent yourselves from getting a collection of invasive plants. Are basically very voracious weeds that can deposit a large amount of seed in the area and create a lasting problem that takes years to deal with. So if you know what they are, what they look like, and you can spot things early, and if you're removing all the plants that you didn't plant, then things won't get out of hand. One of the things about weeding is it's a bit of a runaway effect. So if you don't weed, it's a little harder to get things back to where they were. Never impossible, but yeah, you just keep on top of your work. And using native plants, I want to just take another point to that once again and say that the wildlife here is adapted to eating these native plants. The finches that live here, they love eating purple coneflower, for instance. Lots of birds go after this plant, especially because it attracts some bugs. This plant also in particular has extremely deep roots and is great for rain garden. This coneflower is one of the ones that you'll probably see in most rain gardens. And it's gorgeous. And it's a tall growing plant. It fits all the needs. But planting the natives is really what gives you that resiliency and gives you that assurance where you can just leave the garden to its own. You don't have to water it ever. You can just let it do its thing, serve its purpose. Rain gardens are a piece of green infrastructure, and I'll explain that actually in the next slide. Oh yeah, I've almost forgot this. Everyone's always worried about rain gardens because they collect a few inches of water, that it's going to give you more mosquitoes, because everyone knows that's how mosquitoes are made. But mosquitoes larva development takes 72 hours. So lucky for that, if you design it right and you don't have standing water, then yeah, you won't be contributing to that problem. But always do remember to dump out your recycle bin lids if they fill up with water overnight and you're going to be leaving it. Don't leave them too long for the rest of us. Yeah, so then we get into some of the services that the Nassau County Soil and Water Conservation District provides. We provide all these services to any resident of Nassau County, any nonprofit or organization. We'll come to the site. We can help you with percolation tests. We can do some calculations on the infiltration rate. We can take survey equipment and read the gradient levels of the site. We can give you the grading so you know where the water is going to flow, and then you know where to. We can help give recommendations where to put the rain garden and things like that. We have some, less technical things like stakes to support your plants, and we can, of course, give recommendations. Or you could just show us the whole site plan, and we'll just recommend it all off from there. Yeah, I just wanted to include quickly a picture of our rain garden as well. That was built a few years ago. This picture's from a few years, and you can see lots of the black-eyed Susan are popping out. Those are the yellow ones with the little black in the center on the dot. That is a very popular rain garden plant as well. You're going to see lots, but all these are natives, and they're still doing well, still producing lots of food. There happens to be a groundhog living in this rain garden, and we're okay with that. We love him. His name is Mutton Town Mitch. Yeah, so as I was explaining earlier briefly, rain gardens are a type of green infrastructure. Green infrastructure is basically something that can be built to solve a purpose, and it's a living system. It doesn't necessarily need to be a living system. It's something that helps reduce our carbon footprint and things of that nature. But yeah, to describe it, different problems require different solutions when you're dealing with urban environments, especially. And you need green infrastructure that is very specifically niche fit for those kinds of areas. So just to describe these pictures quickly, pictured above here, that's actually a blue roof. It's something that, it's like these square plates that hold rocks, and it absorbs with water when it rains, and it slowly lets that water evaporate out, cooling the roof in the process, and yeah, holding on to more water and less getting dumped off the roof. On the right-hand side, we have the bioswale. It is basically like a rain garden, but it's designed to fill up with lots of rain. On the bottom as well as a bioswale. Well, it's more of a rain garden, but it's kind of like one of those things where once it hits a certain flow rate, you sort of call it a bioswale. It's also something that helps large currents of water move. A bioswale will help large currents move, where a rain garden is usually designed to hold into it. The bottom picture is a rain garden. But yeah, it's just one type of a green infrastructure, and it's just one kind of project that you can do in an area if it needs a solution. This is just one of the things that the district helps all the time. We build these kinds of things all the time. And yeah, I don't know, it's a beautiful thing to have sort of a living, bring some living features into the urban environment. Everyone knows that it just makes everyone happier, having trees around and gardens and things like that. So yeah, I'll briefly go into a project that Nassau County was funded by the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. It was a grant to build 3 new rain gardens in Bayville, and also it was a green infrastructure grant, so it does rain gardens, and then we also did a permeable pavers. And yeah, this project basically just helped add some beauty to the natural area, and they're still standing today. We go to these gardens and sites and we maintain them. We'll be there in the spring if anyone wants. And by the way, you could always volunteer with the district. We do groups and events where we'll take volunteers out to these sites, teach you about how to weed, and you'll help us with our garden as well in the process. This is also part of the Planting for Clean Water project, thanks to the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation for matching the grants. And they helped us build this, they helped fund this. It's a project for permeable pavers, which are basically another type of green infrastructure where if you have to have an impermeable, if you have to have a surface like a parking lot, but you want it permeable, this is something you can do. It's dug all the way down to the sand base, so it helps water get right into the ground, basically. And you can drive over it, walk over it, you can dance on top of it. Yeah, so I'm gonna go into some plants now. These next 5 slides, it might be a bit much to look at because there's a lot of names on them. But don't worry, you're not going to get quizzed. There's a really great plant list that one of the Nassau County Soil and Water Conservation District's board members, Megan Fastuca, put together. Thank you, Megan, for that and for making resources like this available to the public. It's great work. And yeah, so she made a native plant list that's broken down into seasonal blooms. So you can sort of make your garden flowering all the time, or all the time that things are growing. No promises in the winter. But yeah, so it just goes to show you that how much variety you really could have, and that resources like this are available. And yeah, so just remember to consider site-specific restraints if you're, your shade amount and the amount of rain in your area when you're choosing these kinds of things. And also, yeah, just like the color you like and stuff like that. Pictured behind me here, I think is some geranium in the back of this image. If anyone's interested in those, they have a gorgeous smell. If you ever drive out to Montauk or any of the East End nurseries, they grow tons of this stuff and you can smell it as you drive. Yeah, so some plants that bloom in the summer. One thing I wanted to say is that the plants are for the bugs a lot of the time that we plant sort of things like this. Pictured in the back of this image is what's called butterfly weed, or butterfly milkweed. And milkweed is a great source of food for the butterflies' caterpillars. And yeah, so they lay their eggs on it. And if you love butterflies and you love bugs, then please plant for the bugs. A lot of the time people get confused, because we are planting for ourselves so we can look at the pretty flowers and everything. And of course, it's up to you to coalesce whatever beautiful mix you want. But at the end of the day, you might not always think that something is a good plant. For example, like stinging nettle. That really hurts us humans. No one likes having stinging nettle in their garden. No one wants to go near it or touch it, but black swallowtail butterflies, and they like laying their eggs on it, and their caterpillars can eat it because they're safe and free from all the other predators, don't get to bother them, they know to stay away from that stuff. So yeah, the plants are for the bugs, and that's one thing, especially with summer plants. If you're choosing annuals, you want to choose ones that are a big variety of them that are going to invite lots of different bugs. And yeah, the more bugs you have, the better chance you have of getting a dragonfly in your garden. Just remember that. So there's always an incentive behind all this. And yeah, so some fall bloom plants. One good tip I have for fall bloom plants is to plant them in the way of, if you have like a vegetable garden and you have, say, a pumpkin or something that's growing into the fall, you can plant your fall plants right in front of them. You won't have to look at the dying off plants from the summer and the spring and all that. Gardens can be a great way to really customly, adaptively build it to that area. And yeah, this just some fall plants. Behind us here is some goldenrod, which is a gorgeous, gorgeous plant that you'll see in any field or meadow. Not any, I wish it was in more. But if you come down to the Mutton Town Preserve, we have some in some of our fields. And I know I've seen it around here as well. Lots of it upstate in New York. To go into grasses really quick, here's some gorgeous purple love grass behind me that makes this like misty effect if you have enough of it. And grasses are great. They're super resilient. They're very adaptive. They're some of the toughest plants you can plant, obviously. And yeah, native grasses are gorgeous. They're so much better than having a little golf course on your front lawn. I've been trying to convince, all my neighbors and people to plant more native grasses. And it's just something it's really important to understand the difference in that slide I showed earlier with how much deeper the roots can go with some of these native plants versus the traditional. They're just so much more resilient, and grass is also a great way to fill in like a blank area on the lawn or in the garden, just so no one likes looking at some dirt. So fill it up with grass, and you can seed it real easy. Yeah, so for trees, here's just some of the, it's a shortened list because I had to put it all on one slide because there's a lot of trees out there, but some native trees here. This is one thing I'll say about trees quickly is that they bloom in the spring and the fall. So if you're planting them for like a school, trees are great for that. I'm noticing that I'm getting a little ahead on time, so I'm just going to keep going a little faster. So my favorite slide here, the conifers. Here pictured behind me, we have a lady fern. And yeah, conifers are great. They provide a lot of volume to an area and consistent green. And yeah, let me just quickly show off some of our projects. This is just a quick list. If anyone just sees anything they remember or anything they recognize, I mean. Yeah, there's more than this that we've done, but this is just a short example. And yeah, let's go over these next two slides are just some wrapping things up, sharing some really great resources, places to learn about this kind of stuff. If anyone's interested in gardening in general, the Walk in the Garden webinar series is really great. The Cornell Cooperative Extension is an amazing educational resource for the community. And you should definitely check out their website, check out their resources. They have webinars there, they have classes, tons of things on gardening, and they have a great database as well that I'll get into on the next slide. Yeah, great gardening webinars from National Gardening Bureau and Plant Conservation Alliance. Of course, all the plants I listed today you can find on the Town of North Hempstead environmental website. Just type in Town of North Hempstead native plants and you'll find the list. And there's some great gardening apps for you to use out in the field. The University of Connecticut has a good app for planning a garden. And yeah, there's tons of apps to go in. I have another one listed on the next slide, but the Audubon app, of course, is great. Just if you like birds, if you like plants, it helps you. You can listen to any bird call on the Audubon app. I just like to plug it. It's not so related here. But yeah, just wrapping things up. This is one of my last slides. The USDA is a good kind of baseline database, and the NRCS is a sub-branch of the USDA, something like that. They have some great information on soil health. But those are more general databases, and if you're looking for something that might be more recently updated, you want to check out the New York Flora Association or the New York Natural Heritage Program, or one of my favorite, the IMAP Invasives team. IMAP Invasives has recently come out with an app that you can have on your phone, which is one of the best plant identifier apps out there. And yeah, the information that you collect on that app is then checked by experts, and that can be used by professionals later on. So it's really valuable stuff, and the community can really help out in that way. And yeah, as I was saying earlier, Cornell Cooperative Extension has an amazing woody plants database that you can search. You can filter your search for things like salt tolerance, shade tolerance, things like that. The amount of sun exposure, you can all enter that in. It'll give you a great list. And yeah, that's pretty much everything I had to cover. So I'll take some questions. Sorry, I went a little over.
No, that was perfect, Sean. And I did want to say the district is a great resource for a lot of different topics. You can also find some resources about rain gardens on Friends of the Bay's website, which is friendsofthebay.org. And this presentation has been recorded, so if you missed anything, we will at some point put it up on our website under the resources page. Does anybody have any questions for Sean?
I have a question. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, do you have any suggestions if the soil is too clay-like? Are there any options for putting a
Oh,
rain
yeah.
garden?
Thank you for that. I actually, I went over that, or I like skipped over that information earlier. Yeah. So you can do a few things. You could dig a little deeper. You could dig like a whole foot down, and then you could add a good drainage material on top of that, like a sand or some rocks or something. Or you could also just mix that material into the soil. The more organic material you have in the soil, the healthier it's going to be. You want to feed the soil in a way. That's one popular expression from a lot of really great gardeners is feed your soil, not your plants. Because the more active, the more bioactive it is with worms and things like that, and the better it will be at draining water when that time does come. So feed it with some mulch, just some natural mulch, and yeah, some rocks and some sand. You can mix that in, or you could just drop it all on top if you dig enough. But you still want to dig enough that there's a depression of water to catch.
Right. Okay, thank you.
That's a really good question.
Yeah, thank you. I totally didn't cover that. I meant to.
You did a very good job of covering the subject, Sean. And it's nice to know that people can contact you at Rooney at nassau.swcd.org to, maybe get some more specific information about rain gardens.
Yeah, any suggestions? The district provides these resources to all residents in Nassau County, so don't feel bad about it. It's my job.
Thank you. Good.
Oh, and from Frances Leone, she said, great presentation, thank you. And they have turned half of their front lawn into a rain garden, which is,
that's wonderful.
boy, I would love to see that. I bet you it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And you're getting kudos for your presentation. And again,
Thank you.
appreciate
I
your
see the
presentation and appreciate everybody who's signed on to attend, and hoping that you'll start a rain garden of your own, or maybe in your own community, if not at your house, or even better, at both. And you can take a look at our Western Waterfront Rain Gardens, which is across from Building J, over at the Western Waterfront. Looking a little bit there. I'm looking forward to, as spring moves along, that those plants are going to get even more vibrant looking, but they are doing their job of stemming stormwater runoff, as well as capturing all the materials that we don't want to have in our waterways. So nobody has any more questions. I think we can call it a night and say thank you again, Sean.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
Thanks.
And thank you all again. Good night until the next time.
Good night.
Good night.